Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my toxic family wants to take my property and give it to my sister. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. My 21 female grandparents started their own business when they were younger. They worked hard until they were successful. Since then, all of their children and their spouses have worked there. My mother left after about 5 or so years and my uncle left after about 5 or so years as well. But my aunt, the eldest of the three, never did. My grandparents bought 2 houses way back when it was still affordable, and my aunt, my uncle and 2 cousins, 21 female and 26 male, all live in one while my grandparents live in the other. For the past 30 or 35 years, my auntie has been living off of everything my grandparents built. It's nepotism, and I will gladly admit it. The only time she and my uncle and any of my cousins talk to my grandparents is when they want money. Recently, my grandparents decided to retire, so they are selling the business. The same business that my aunt and uncle thought they would inherit. The same business that is the reason they've been living rent-free for almost 30 years. The same business that she held over our heads all these years. I love my aunt and cousins, but I can see the nepotism. They always expect everything without any hard work, and the only thing they see is the injustice being done upon them. Not the fact that for the first time in decades our grandparents will be able to breathe and relax. They always held their money over us and acted as our superiors, and we were given the same money. We just didn't touch ours because we don't see it as our money. We did not do anything to earn it yet. Now they are probably going to go broke and lose everything, and I'm here for it. Reap what you sow, self-righteous idiots. And yeah, Ripe Stars, to be honest, that is something I will never really understand. Why would you brag about having a lot of money if you didn't earn it yourself? That just seems so lame and wrong to me, but maybe that is just me, I'm not sure. And before we continue with the title story, I need your help with something. Some of you might know my new cat Dexter, and here in Thailand there's a pretty big beauty contest for cats, and the cat that gets the most likes on Facebook has the chance to become a cat model. Needless to say, that would basically mean free cat food for Dexter forever. So if you want to help Dexter win, please go to my community page, then click on the Facebook link and click like on the picture. Thank you so much. And now let's continue with the title story. The next one is the title story, and it is titled "Toxic Family Wants to Take My Mountain House and Give It to My Sister Despite Kicking Me Out When I Was a Child." I never thought I would see the day when my own family would try to steal my home from me, but then again, I suppose I shouldn't have been surprised. They had already taken so much from me over the years, my childhood, my sense of self-worth and any semblance of a normal family life. Why not go for my house too, right? Well, let me back up a bit and give you some context. My name is Alex and I'm 32 years old. I grew up in a dysfunctional household with parents who clearly favored my younger sister Megan. While she could do no wrong in their eyes, I was constantly criticized, belittled and made to feel worthless. Nothing I did was ever good enough. The final straw came when I was 16. After yet another screaming match with my dad over my so-called attitude problem and mediocre grades, he kicked me out of the house. Just like that, a teenager alone on the streets with nothing but a hastily packed backpack. My mom and sister stood by silently as he slammed the door in my face. Those first few months were brutal. I couch surfed with friends when I could, stayed in shelters when I couldn't. Eventually, I managed to get a part-time job at a local diner and rent a tiny studio apartment. It was not much, but it was mine. More importantly, it was far away from my toxic family. Over the next decade and a half, I busted my ass to build a life for myself. Community college classes at night while working full-time during the day, gradually working my way up from dishwasher to line cook to sous chef at increasingly upscale restaurants. I put every spare penny into savings, determined to one day have a real home of my own. Finally, at age 30, all that hard work paid off. I was able to buy a modest cabin in the mountains about 2 hours outside the city. Nothing fancy, but it had breathtaking views and a sense of peace I'd never known growing up. For the first time in my life, I felt like I truly had a home. I had zero contact with my family during those years. As far as I was concerned, they were already dead to me. So you can imagine my shock when out of the blue I got a text from my sister Megan. "Hey big bro, long time no see. Mom and dad wanna reconnect. Can we all come visit your new place next weekend?" My first instinct was to tell them to go to hell, but a tiny part of me wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had changed. Maybe they regretted how they had treated me and wanted to make amends or something. Against my better judgment, I reluctantly agreed to the visit. Big mistake though, the moment they pulled up in their shiny new SUV, I knew this was not gonna go well. My dad barely looked at me as he blustered past into the house. My mom gave me a limp hug, muttering, "Oh, it's rustic." As she glanced around disapprovingly, Megan just smirked and tossed her designer purse on my couch like she owned the place. So, my dad finally acknowledged me. "This is what you've been up to all these years? Living like a hermit in the woods?" I bristled. "I've built a good life for myself. I'm the head chef at..." He waved his hand dismissively. Yes, cooking. Well, I suppose it's an honest trade, though hardly what we had hoped for you." My mom chimed in. "We always thought you would follow in your father's footsteps and go into finance. Such a shame you never lived up to your potential." I gritted my teeth, reminding myself that engaging would only make things worse. Would anyone like some coffee? As I busied myself in the kitchen, I overheard snippets of their conversation in the living room. "Really, it's a lovely spot. Shame it's being wasted. Could be worth a fortune with the right renovations. Always did have more business sense." A knot formed in my stomach. What were they up to? When I returned with the coffee, my dad got right to the point. "Alex, we've been talking and we have a proposition for you. How would you like to sell this place to us?" I blinked in surprise. "Sell it to you? Why would I do that? This is my home." He leaned forward, all faux concern. "Son, let's be realistic. You're not exactly equipped to maintain a property like this. It needs a lot of work that costs money you don't have." "I'm doing just fine," I said stiffly. "I have savings and..." My mom interrupted. "Sweetheart, we're just trying to help. We could take this burden off your hands, give you a fresh start somewhere more suitable." The subtext was clear, somewhere out of sight where I would not embarrass them. "Thanks, but I'm happy here," I said firmly. "I'm not interested in selling either." And that is when Megan piped up. "Come on, Alex, don't be selfish. Think of what this place could be with some real investment. I could turn it into an amazing vacation rental business. You know, I've always had a knack for that kind of thing." I stared at her incredulously. "Selfish? I worked my ass off for years to afford this place. Why should I give it up just so you can play real estate mogul?" My dad's fake friendly demeanor vanished, his face hardened into the scowl I remembered all too well from childhood. "Now listen here, boy, we're trying to do you a favor. Lord knows you've been nothing but a disappointment to this family. The least you could do is step aside and let your sister make something of this property. She deserves it more than your sorry ass." I saw red. All the old anger and resentment came flooding back. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" my mom gasped. I said, "Get out," I shouted, jumping to my feet. "All of you, get the hell out of my house right now." "How dare you speak to us that way?" my dad bellowed, "after everything we have done for you." I laughed bitterly. "Done for me? You kicked me out when I was 16. I've done everything for myself, no thanks to you. Now leave before I call the cops on you." They left in a huff, my dad muttering about ungrateful children and my mom dabbing at fake tears. Megan shot me a venomous look as she flounced out the door. "This is not over," she hissed. I slumped onto the couch, drained. What the hell just happened? After 15 years of no contact, they show up out of the blue, demanding I hand over my home? The audacity was staggering. I was also wondering how they found me, but since my Facebook profile and posts are public, I guess they must have seen that I posted about my new property here. I guess I should have also been more careful there. I still wrote every now and then with my sister though. Little did I know that was just the beginning. Over the next few months they launched an all-out campaign to try to force me out of my house. It started with incessant calls and texts alternating between guilt-tripping and threats, and when I blocked their numbers they started showing up unannounced. I came home from work one day to find my mom and sister on my porch. "We're not leaving until you agree to sell the property," Megan declared, arms crossed. I called the cops on them and had them removed for trespassing. That only seemed to fuel their termination even further though. Next came the legal threats. I received a certified letter from a lawyer claiming that since my parents had financially supported me as a minor, they were entitled to a portion of my assets. It was complete BS, of course. They had provided the bare minimum required by law and nothing after kicking me out at 16, but fighting it would mean expensive legal fees I could not afford. When that did not work, they tried spreading rumors in the local community too. I started getting strange looks from neighbors, and one day the sweet older couple down the road approached me hesitantly. "Alex dear," Mrs. Johnson said gently, "we don't mean to pry, but is everything alright? We heard some concerning things from a woman claiming to be your mother." I sighed heavily. "Let me guess, she told you that I'm mentally unstable or something? That I'm squatting here illegally? That I'm a danger to myself and others?" Mr. Johnson nodded grimly. "Something along those lines, yeah." I spent the next hour setting the record straight, explaining the whole sordid history with my family. The Johnsons were horrified and promised to spread the word about what was really going on here, and just when I thought things could not get any worse, they did. I came home late one night after a long shift at the restaurant to find my front door ajar. Heart pounding, I cautiously entered to find my living room ransacked. Drawers pulled out, papers strewn everywhere. As I moved further into the house, I heard voices coming from my bedroom. I peered around the corner to see my parents and sister rifling through my closet and desk. "It's gotta be here somewhere," my dad muttered. "The deed financial paper is something we can use." "Oh, look at this," Megan exclaimed, pulling out a stack of cash from my sock drawer. That was my emergency fund, nearly $5,000 I'd been saving for years. I saw red. Without thinking, I stormed into the room. "What the hell do you think you're doing here?" They whirled around, faces pale with shock at being caught. For a moment, nobody moved, and then Megan bolted for the door, my money still clutched in her hands. "Oh no, you don't!" I lunged at her, managing to grab her arm. She shrieked and tried to wrench away. In the struggle, bills went flying everywhere. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my back as my dad shoved me hard. I stumbled, losing my grip on Megan, and she took off running. I scrambled to my feet, ready to give chase, when my mom's shrill voice stopped me. "Don't you dare lay a hand on my daughter, you monster!" I looked at her in disbelief. "Are you kidding me? You break into my house, try to steal from me, and I am the monster?" My dad puffed up, trying to look intimidating. "Now you listen here, boy. We tried to do this the nice way, but you've left us no choice. This house rightfully belongs to our family. If you won't see reason, we will just have to take matters into our own hands." I pulled out my phone. "The only place you're going to is jail. I'm calling the cops." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. My dad lunged at me too, trying to grab my phone. I dodged, but he managed to knock it from my hand. It skittered across the hardwood floor. As I dove for the phone, I saw my mom grab a heavy brass lamp from my bedside table. Time seemed to slow as I watched her raise it over her head, a crazed look in her eyes. "Mom, no!" I yelled, but it was too late. Pain exploded in my skull as the lamp connected. My vision went fuzzy, and the last thing I remembered before blacking out was my sister's voice saying, "Quick, grab anything valuable and let's go!" I'm not sure how long I was unconscious for. When I came to, my head was throbbing and there was blood matted in my hair. My house was eerily quiet and they were long gone, along with my emergency fund, laptop, and anything else of value they could really carry. Groggily, I managed to locate my phone and call 911. Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived as I was being checked for a concussion. I gave my statement to the officers and they seemed skeptical at first. It did sound pretty unbelievable. But the evidence backed up my story. Signs of forced entry, the ransacked house, my injuries. "Don't worry, sir, we will find them," one officer assured me. "Breaking and entering, assault, theft, they are looking at some serious charges." I nodded weakly, wincing at the movement. What the hell had my life become? The next few weeks were a blur of police interviews, insurance claims, and recovering from my injuries. Thankfully, the concussion was not severe, but I needed several stitches where the lamp had split my scalp. I had to take time off work, which meant losing income I could not afford to lose, and between the stolen cash and replacing my laptop, I was in a tight financial spot. But I was determined to not let my family win. The police managed to track them down fairly quickly. Apparently, they had used my credit card at a gas station a few towns over, which gave away their location. All three were arrested without incident. I got a call from a detective handling the case. "Mr. Stevens, we have apprehended the suspects. We will need you to come in and formally press charges on them." I hesitated for a split second. Despite everything, some small part of me still struggled with the idea of sending my family to jail or something. But then I thought of everything they had put me through, not just recently, but my entire life. The constant belittling, the emotional abuse, kicking me out as a teenager. And now this assault, theft, trying to steal my home, enough was enough. "I'll be right there," I told the detective firmly. Sitting in the police station, formally pressing charges against my own parents and sister was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. But as I signed the paperwork, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I was standing up to them, taking back control. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. My family hired a hotshot lawyer who tried every trick in the book to get the charges against them dismissed, but the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, they all took plea deals to avoid a trial. My dad got 3 years for orchestrating the break-in and assault, my mom got 18 months for her role in the assault, and Megan got 12 months for theft and breaking and entering. It was strange seeing them led away in handcuffs, no longer larger-than-life tyrants, just sad, desperate people facing the consequences of their actions. As part of the plea deals, they were ordered to pay restitution for everything they had stolen, plus my medical bills and lost wages. They were also slapped with a permanent restraining order. Never again would they be allowed to set foot on my property or contact me in any way. In the end, justice was served, but it did not feel like a victory. Just a sad, messy end to a family that had been broken for a very long time. The months that followed were difficult as I tried to put my life back together. The attack left me jumpy and paranoid for a while. I installed a top-of-the-line security system and started seeing a therapist to work through the trauma, both recent and long buried. Slowly but surely, things got better. I threw myself into work, eventually being promoted to executive chef. I made some improvements to the house, finally feeling secure enough to really make it my own. Most importantly, I started opening up to other people, my co-workers, neighbors, even a few dating prospects. For the first time in my life, I was building real healthy relationships. Creating the family I'd always wanted but never had. Now, 2 years later, life is good. My house is truly a home filled with warmth and happiness instead of fear and resentment. I'm now in a loving relationship with an amazing woman who accepts me, baggage and all, and I'm finally at peace with my past. But I'll probably never fully understand why my family turned out the way they did or why they felt entitled to take what was mine. But I've stopped letting that define me. Their choices are on them. I'm just grateful that I found the strength to break free and build a better life for myself. Sometimes I think about them sitting in their prison cells. I wonder if they've gained any insight or feel any remorse. Part of me hopes that maybe this was the wake-up call they needed to change, but I'm not holding my breath. All I know is that I am done being a victim. I stood up for myself, came out on top, and I am never looking back. My future is bright and it's mine to shape however I choose. No one will take that away from me ever again. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm so happy for OP that in the end everything turned out well, that he is now in a nice relationship and his parents will never bother him again. And honestly, you cannot even call these people parents because they have abandoned him when he was essentially just a child, and now when he is successful they came back and tried to steal everything from him. Absolutely terrible people, and I feel so much empathy for OP. Either way, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments, and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I have had a constant issue with my neighbor for as long as I can remember. There was never anything in the past that was crazy to cause it either, we just never saw eye to eye, and as time went on it became a bigger and bigger problem. He was the type of person that wanted things a certain way and expected people to defer to what he wanted. Like, he was what people might traditionally call an alpha male and was under the assumption that he would be respected as such. I am pretty much the exact opposite of him, and that's where most of our small arguments come from. I have no issue as a man showing a side to myself other than the stereotypical tough guy that drinks beer and watches football persona. One thing that I enjoy doing is gardening and planting flowers in front of my house. I think that it looks nice and I plant a variety of colors to make things look as nice as possible. When doing this and minding my own business, my neighbor would come to me and make comments. Things like, how am I not a real man because I do these things? Or even insinuating that I might like men because of it, despite the fact that I have a wife and kids. Nothing wrong obviously with being gay, but there are straight men that enjoy planting flowers and the color pink. I think what bothers him more than anything is that I have 2 sons and I don't force them into anything either. One time the neighbor's son asked them to play some kind of game I cannot remember the name of. It was not a traditional game like a sport, just one of these kids games. It involved tackling and running around. Ever since they could walk, we signed them up for all kinds of activities to find what they like doing best. Neither one of them enjoyed contact sports, so they said no. My older son enjoys doing gymnastics and is actually extremely good. My younger son does not like sports at all, but is more into animals and has taken horseback riding lessons. My neighbor of course interpreted it as me not letting my sons do masculine things. Before, when he was just talking about me, I was quick to brush it off. Bringing my parenting skills and style into things got me more defensive and the issues between us just began to grow bigger from there. He would start complaining more about everything just to try and start a fight. Suddenly my dog was waking everybody up at the crack of dawn. When really, he would let out a couple normal volume barks when the school bus would come to pick up my kids. Comments about my clothing and hobbies continued, and so I finally took the bait and started arguing back. One thing that we had and he didn't was a driveway, and decided to mock him for it. For some bizarre reason, when my neighborhood was first designed, the homes that were on the street corners did not get space for a driveway. It never got resolved either, so it's just one of those weird things, and he happens to have a corner house. We also have more property than him and shoved that in his face. As well as telling him that while he was raising a son to care about brawn, I was raising mine to do well in school. And I might have insinuated that one day his son would be working for mine. I'm not proud of being an adult man and fighting with this guy, I had just reached my limit. A few months after that, it was spring break for the kids and I decided that we were going on a vacation for the week. I saved up money and took my paid time off work without telling the kids any of it. They were so happy to hear that we were going on vacation. They got to see the ocean for the first time and it was an amazing bonding experience. When we got back home, we were exhausted and did not even bother unpacking most of the car, opting instead to get inside and collapse on our beds. Another quirk with our neighborhood is that there are no fences allowed in the front yards. We can have them in the side of the yard, but they have to stop and turn inwards to the house at a certain point. This means for property lines we basically use the imaginary line where the fence would be if it extended. That's why when we came home that night, I did not notice anything out of the ordinary. When my car ended up being towed the next day out of my own driveway though, was when I learned that my neighbor was a sneaky little guy. He took advantage of the fact that we were on vacation and moved the entire fence over to be more on my property. Fences here basically indicate the property line, so anybody coming onto the property to do work will think that. The cheeky little bugger moved it just enough that it now looked like my driveway was on his property. Then he decided it would be an amazing idea to call a tow company and claim that my car was parked illegally in his driveway. Of course they were going to believe him because of the moved fence and tow me away first and ask questions never. Keep in mind that we didn't unpack the car, so all of our luggage was still inside when the car was towed away. I called the tow company and tried to argue that my car was legally parked and they were the ones that made the mistake. They refused to listen and told me if I wanted my car back, I would have to pay for it. If I wanted to argue the parking being legal, I would have to take it up with my neighbor and send them in actual proof. I went to my neighbor to try and find out why he did this. It seemed 10 steps ahead of anything else we have done in the past. Me, you got my car towed away? Neighbor, yeah, that big truck had no issues moving your sissy car. Haha. Me, you cannot just get my car towed away for being in my driveway. I was not even blocking you or anything. Neighbor, well, I moved the fence, so I guess it's my driveway now. Unless you're going to use those noodle arms of yours to try and move it back. If you did though, I would have to call the cops on you for messing with my fence. Me, you do know that is not how property lines work, right? Just because you moved the fence doesn't mean that the land is yours. Neighbor, seems to be working for me so far. You wanted to go on about how you have a driveway, so I decided to teach you a lesson. You might have big words, but at the end of the day, I have something you never will. Go back with your tail tucked between your legs like the sissy you are. He was really using the old bully logic that he was bigger and stronger, so he could just take things from people. This might work in elementary school, but this was the real world and things like laws applied. Yes, he could move the fence around until he was blue in the face, but the property line was set in stone and on the papers for some town. I was just going to have to take him to court and prove that he moved it and the fence is not on the correct property line. Some people might question why I did not call the police and have them sort this entire thing out. Well, they would be able to see on the ground that the fence was moved and stop his threats. Then I could just get the fence moved back and he would have to stop. The main issue with that was that this guy was friends with all of the local police for the simple reason that he was also a cop. I knew that no officer was going to help me against one of their own, so I had no choice but to take legal action. In the meantime, I had to park my car in the street and try to explain to my sons why the backyard they used to play in was suddenly so much smaller. I was not worried because I knew that it would be a pretty open and shut case. All I would need was somebody from the town to confirm where the correct boundary is and that the driveway is on my side of it. then get the money back I spent to get the car back, and a judge to force my neighbor to move the fence back and keep it there. I would have went into more detail, but honestly it was pretty cut and dry, so basic to the point that it just wasn't good enough for me. I might not act like a bully or alpha male, but that does not make me a perfect person. I wanted to get some revenge on my neighbor to show him that he could not mess with me. I knew I had to be careful because of him being a cop, so legality was important for this. I also didn't want to do anything that would negatively affect his son because he is just a kid after all. The biggest problem was that I had zero clue where to even start getting revenge. Despite being a creative guy, I had nothing, and for a while the plan was a bust. Then I started talking to other neighbors and people that lived in the same town as me about him. It was actually by coincidence that one day I heard two people at the grocery store complaining about getting a ticket for speeding when they knew they weren't. Another one saying that she got a ticket for not stopping at a stop sign that she said was not even there. It really did get me thinking that maybe I did have a way to get back at him. It's pretty common knowledge that I would guess a majority of places cops have a quota of tickets to give each month. This means near the end of a month the troll places where people speed or don't stop, things like that. If he was giving people tickets though for things that didn't exist to reach his quota, I am sure that he would be getting in some serious trouble with his job. First I had to get some evidence, or at least people's anecdotes. I set up a little thing on a website where you can talk about unfair tickets you got and give the information on the officer. Basically the modern day equivalent of going around and trying to talk to everybody in town personally. It did not blow up or anything, but I got a decent number of people talking about tickets that did not make sense. Like, the ticket would say one intersection when they were at a different one. Mainly because the one on the ticket had a light or a stop sign or whatever they were getting a violation for. There was a good amount of people complaining and my neighbor's name being dropped. Sometimes it was other names, but by far it was more of him than anybody else. The other thing was all of these happened within a couple of days left in a month, meaning he was clearly making stuff up to reach his quota. I started urging people to report when a traffic stop ticket didn't make sense or the place on the ticket did not even match. That if there was an error with the ticket, the fine could even end up getting thrown out. Nobody wants to pay or have something on their record if they absolutely don't have to. People started calling into the station now a ton about the tickets having the wrong location or being outright lies. The reason I knew about this was because my neighbor would loudly complain to his wife that his boss was on his rear about complaints. I wanted to tell him that I was behind the whole thing, but did not want to get into a fight. This continued until I heard a conversation between my neighbor and one of his friends that were in the backyard. Neighbor, I cannot believe that he demoted me and put me on desk duty. Do you know the kind of guys that end up on desk duty? Friend, they just started complaining about the tickets being wrong? Why would he even believe them over you? We are cops and they're just regular people. They should be thanking us. Neighbor, I don't know, but I guess they were using cameras and could tell. But listen, you need to stop doing this to reach the quota because you could be next. Friend, geez, they're going to put all the tough guys on the bench and then wonder when something bad happens, why we were not there to do anything. It turns out that he was not the only alpha male around, and they seemed to even think other cops were not good enough. As most of you reading this might know, getting a cop fired is nearly impossible unless they do something really out there and wrong. Getting him demoted in the first place was the best thing that was going to happen, but his reaction from it was very satisfying to me. He seemed embarrassed by it and even his wife laid into him for getting a demotion. However, this is not where the story ends. Remember that I talked about legal action in regards to him, essentially vandalizing my property by moving the fence and then claiming that he owns my driveway and getting me towed. Well, that's exactly what happened. We managed to find a witness, one of my neighbors, that testified that he saw my douchebag neighbor move the fence and then get my car towed. This supposed alpha male basically broke down in front of the judge because he knew his career was on the line. It did not help him that half of the city now complained about his fraudulent tickets as well. To make a long story short, he ended up losing his job and he started drinking a lot. I'm actually sort of worried that he's becoming an alcoholic, but honestly, I have no more sympathy for him. He is simply an evil little man that thought he had too much power. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.